You might think that reaching JLPT N1 level means you're fluent in Japanese, and I thought so too, until I got there, and yeah, it turns out I still couldn't really speak. You see, when I first started learning Japanese, I was completely self-taught. No classes, no tutors, no formal curriculum. So I used the JLPT, the Japanese Language Proficiency Test, as a way to track my progress. And my assumption back then was, by the time I get to N1, I'm gonna know so much Japanese that the whole language will just click. But here's what actually happened. I hit N2, then N1, and I still couldn't speak. At least, not fluently. Like, I had knowledge of the language, but no control over it. And it turns out that a lot of language learners go through the exact same thing, where they pass the JLPT N1, but they still can't speak fluently or naturally. For example, here are some real comments that I found on Reddit that hit exactly that point. One user said, I passed with 140, but I still don't feel anywhere close to fluent. My reading is fine, but I still struggle with speaking and listening. Another user says, I passed N1, but speaking is still terribly difficult. I know the vocab, but I'm terrible at using it naturally. And lastly, I passed N1, but when using Japanese, I still feel like my Japanese is wrong. I can't use high-level grammar in conversation. The truth is, the JLPT is essentially just a reading and listening test. It's a knowledge test. It doesn't test your speaking, it doesn't test your writing, and it definitely doesn't test how well you manage real-life conversations or grasp subtle nuances. It's a useful measure of comprehension, but it's not a complete picture of fluency. Let's take a deeper look at why that is. So the main reason why passing N1 doesn't guarantee fluency has to do with how our brains actually acquire language. I mean, you can study Japanese all day, memorizing vocab, drilling grammar, but that's not the same as using it. You can think of it like swimming, for lack of a better analogy. Like, you can watch tutorials, you can read about technique, but you won't become a strong swimmer until you actually get in the water and start practicing. And language is no different. You learn about it through study, but you acquire it through use. Just know that fluency comes from immersion, from living in the language. Listening, reading, thinking, speaking over and over and over again. So that begs the question, should you even take the JLPT? Now, if you need the JLPT for school or work in Japan, then yes, absolutely, go for it. But what if that's not part of your plan? Should you still take the test? Well, there are some solid benefits to prepping for the JLPT, even if you don't need the official certificate. Just be careful not to fall in the trap of making everything about chasing N1 like I did. Use it as a tool, not a finish line. Here's how it can help you. Number 1, it's a solid benchmark for checking your current level. Like, if you're wondering how much Japanese you actually understand, the JLPT offers a structured way to find out. Each level, N5 to N1, tests reading and listening skills with increasing difficulty so it can help you gauge your progress. Even if you don't care about the certificate, the test itself gives you a snapshot of where your comprehension stands. Number 2, it provides direction and a sense of progress. One of the hardest parts of self-studying Japanese is knowing what to do next, and the JLPT offers a built-in path forward, N5 to N1, so there's always a clear next step. Passing one level naturally leads to preparing for the next, which helps learners stay focused and consistent over time. Using the levels as short-term milestones can make the learning process feel much more structured and goal-oriented. Number 3, it introduces new vocab and kanji. JLPT resources often come with level-specific word and kanji lists. But rather than memorizing them in isolation, a smarter approach is to take the unfamiliar words, look for real examples in context, and reinforce them with SRS tools like Anki. This way, you're not just cramming, you're building a stronger foundation for immersion. And the more vocab you internalize, the easier it becomes to follow native content, whether that's books, podcasts, or YouTube videos. It turns passive exposure into actual progress. Number 4, it builds reading stamina. Okay, so the JLPT reading sections, especially at the N1 and N2 levels, can be very long, dense, and just mentally draining. And preparing for them trains your ability to stay focused and process large amounts of Japanese in one sitting. And that kind of endurance doesn't just help on the test, it directly carries over to reading books, articles, and other native content. Number 5, it covers grammar you might overlook otherwise. Okay, so studying for the JLPT will introduce you to a lot of kakikotoba, or written Japanese, informal connectors, and a lot of academic grammar. It's not always fun, and it's not really useful for casual conversation, but if you plan to live, work, or study in Japan someday, this knowledge becomes extremely valuable. So at the end of the day, it's really up to you if you want to take the JLPT or not. But don't chase N1 expecting it to magically unlock fluency all on its own. Build fluency alongside it with immersion, conversations, and real-world use. Look, Japanese isn't easy, but it can be simple if you focus on the right things. And if I'm being real, I obsessed over the JLPT for years. Like, when I was a beginner, I really thought that once I hit N1, everything would just fall into place. I overstudied and underused. I memorized tons of vocabulary but rarely spoke it. I drilled grammar that I couldn't apply in real conversations, and somewhere along the way, I forgot to actually enjoy the language. So if you're early in your journey, use the JLPT if it helps. Like, it can give structure, motivation, and introduce you to high-level vocab and grammar. But just remember that exposure isn't the same as fluency. Like, knowing a word doesn't mean you can use it. But if you combine JLPT prep with real immersion, like native content, active use, and real conversations, that vocab and grammar become much more than just test answers. They become part of how you think and communicate in the language. So here's something to ask yourself. Are you chasing a certificate or a language you can actually live and think in? Let me know in the comments below. And if you really want to take your Japanese beyond the test, check out my video on Immersion. And as always, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.